Sir, if we get you to sit on this arm here.
Oh, good, sir.
Thank you very much.
Want to go down?
NBC, CBS, ABC,
New
New
York
York Times,
New York Times.
UPI, Associated Press.
Okay.
Odell, we'd like to ask you this first question, and that is, were you there at the time that the poisons took place?
I was there for, I'll say 20 minutes or so after it started.
Could you tell us what you saw?
There was a general meeting called after the congressman and his party left. And Jones told us that these people wouldn't reach the states. He denounced the people who were members who had left, and told the public there that these people wouldn't reach the states and that everyone there would commit suicide. And then he asked if there was any dissent, anyone who dissented. And one lady did get up and say that she didn't think it would possibly happen, and that she didn't agree with it. That was the only thing to do. She felt like we could possibly go to Cuba or Russia or some other place, you know, if we couldn't stay here. And shortly after, a vehicle came back and someone came and talked to him, and he said it's too late, the people were dead, and he instructed the doctor to bring this poison.
How was the poisoning done? How was it conducted?
Well, they took their equipment into a tent that was used as a library in school, and they brought over syringes, large-sized syringes, you know, minus the needles, and they had small plastic containers with a liquid solution in it and a large vat of what appeared to be punch, and they would draw up an amount in the syringes, and he had babies and children go first, and they would take the syringe, and nurse or other people who were administering it would simply put it into the person's mouth, and they would swallow it and then give them a small drink of punch to wash it down.
Were the people willing to do this?
Well, the first person that went up was a young mother. I'd say she was about 27 or so. She had a small baby, and I'd say the baby was approximately 1.5, something like that. She walked up and she administered to her own baby, and then she took her home. And then she went over into a field and sat down, and that's, you know, it was hard to believe. You know, I could understand older people maybe, but I couldn't understand these young people just doing that.
But the question is, were people prodded to go up and take?
In her case, she wasn't.
How about in other
And
cases?
I saw a lot of cases where people went, but at that time it was mostly children, and a lot of children were carried. Babies, you know, that you would carry were taken by parents. Most of them just did. Most of them at that time did go voluntarily.
Odell, what did most of the people do after they had taken the poison? Did they lie down? Did they pray? Why were so many found face down?
I can't say why they were found face down. They went into convulsions, and at the time that I left, they were just laying in all different different ways.
How quickly did they die?
4 or 5 minutes. I could be wrong. I mean, you know, time just kind of lost, you know, any kind of meaning right then, but I'd say 4 to 5 minutes.
Are you saying that the bodies, many of them later, were turned over?
That's possible. I don't know. The area where they first started going into, there were a lot of babies and children, and when I went back to identify bodies, I didn't go into that area.
What was Jones saying during all of this? What was going through your head?
Well, he was, parents were talking to their children and telling them whatever they were telling them, and a lot of the children were crying. And he was telling them not to tell the children that they were dying, not to tell them it was painful. He was telling people it wasn't painful, and that, you know, people had to die with dignity. And you know, that this was a way of protesting what was happening, you know, that what the people in the United States were doing to the community. This was their way of protesting it.
What did he look like at that time, and what did he sound like?
That's hard to say, because at that time I thought it was all just kind of crazy. I wasn't thinking too clearly. My whole thoughts at the time was I was trying to find a way out. And he sounded very calm. He didn't seem excited. He was very calm, and he was sitting in a chair, and he was very calm. He didn't seem excited, you know.
Did he seem in a trance?
I don't know. I couldn't say that.
Why were you different? Why weren't you taken up in all this as the others were?
Well, for one, I haven't been with the organization but 2 years, and I never believed wholly in very much of anything, and I couldn't buy a lot of the things that he said. I couldn't buy. I mean, that's just never been my thing, you know, killing myself. I don't figure that's a way to solve anything.
How did you get away?
It was there was mass confusion. You know, people were standing around in groups, saying goodbye to each other, walking around hugging old friends and stuff like that. And I walked to a fence, and you know, I was just looking around to see, you know, trying to figure how I could get away, because there were guards ringing the place with weapons. And the doctor that was there, he asked someone to get him a stethoscope. And the woman there was the director of the medical department, was standing close, and I told her, I said, Larry needs a stethoscope. And the nursing office is a small ways away from there, and it was on the other side of where the guards were. So when she started to walk down, I simply walked with her. When we approached one of the guards, he asked where we were going, and she said, we're going to the medical office. And that wasn't odd, because they were bringing different things from the nursing office up there. And when we got through there, well, I felt that I would have to kill her to get away, but fortunately, she went into the doctor's office and instructed me to go into the nursing office, which are in two separate buildings. And I went to the nursing office, and there was no one there. And if you go in the back of the nursing office, there's a senior center, a place where seniors, mostly bedridden, or, you know, who can't move around too much, are in there. And I went out through there, and the seniors were in there, and they were prepared to go up, because one of them asked me, are you the guy that's going to take us up there? And I said, do you know what they're doing up there? And she said, yes. And I said, no, I'm not the person who's going to take you. I'm looking for somebody. And I went out the back and went under the building and crawled right up to the front where, you know, it was a low area, and hid right among the poles there. And I crawled down to the end to, you know, to try to make an exit from there, and there were a couple of armed guards sitting not too far away. So I felt like I would have to wait till dark. And suddenly they called for all people with weapons to come up to the general area where the killings were going on. And when they went up, I slipped out and went through a small building that's a bakery. Went into the bakery, and I just went from building to building going toward the back. I went from the bakery to a building that's used for physical therapy. I, you know, went behind there, and right behind that there's a kitchen. And I went over a wall into the kitchen and went through, and there's an area that has wing beans planted, and wing beans, they grow up on vines, and it's a lot of foliage. And I went through the wing beans out the back and down through a field, down through the bush.
What were those people like, the guards, that they would stay until the last and then come forward and put down their weapons and take the poison? Were they robots?
I thought a lot of the guards and stuff had a lot of individual, I don't know what I would call it. I didn't think they would do it. I never thought that they would.
Were they treated differently?
Separated
from the group? They have special privileges, other privileges that other members of the the group didn't?
I would say some took maybe special privileges, you know, on their own. I don't know if they were given special privileges. I would say they lived with other people, you know, they lived around and with other people, but it was like a clique, you know, like I'm security, and, you know, they didn't work with other people. They did security work, and that was normally it.
Do you think it's possible that a nucleus of that quick armed is surviving out there and will try to get itself back together again?
From what I saw in there, I saw most of, I didn't see all the bodies when I went back in, but I saw most of the people who were in the security force there at the time. I saw most of them dead.
How many people do you think are still in the jungle, lost or wandering?
I don't have any idea.
Well, now you were there though, and you know the likelihood of people leaving by a few at a time over the past week or so. You know approximately how many beds there were. You know what we're getting at, the different numbers that have been thrown out. So from somebody who lived there, what's your best guess?
It's hard to say because people were constantly leaving for Georgetown. People left for a store that they had in Mabarumba.
So before this happened, they could have trickled away. The population could have dropped before the suicide to the number that are dead.
No, I don't think. I think there were more people. It's possible, but the average person would never have an accurate count of who was there and who was not, because there were constantly people leaving.
Do you think there are members of the group still out in the jungle?
According to this senior lady who was here, she saw a person, she says Monday, another girl, but when she called to the girl ran. And so that would be one person that would possibly still be out.
Have you thought in your own mind about what might have been behind all of this? Was Jones trying to cover up something, some connection which would be political or involving large amounts of money, something that he was so ashamed of that he couldn't live with? Was it just the death of Congressman Ryan or something bigger?
I don't like to give opinions on it because I know there are a lot of them, but I would say that I felt that the people who left, and he said this himself, that if these people who wanted to leave, the families here, the Parks and the other families who left with the congressman, and these other people here who had left that morning, if they were allowed to get away with it, then next week some of these other families from the United States would come and try to take their people back, and it would be a constant process. And I think he just could not stand to see his organization break up. He had a lot of ego, and he had to be in control. And I think that his decision stemmed from the fact that he found he was losing control.
Bill, were you scared? Were you terribly frightened? Did you think this was the real thing and everybody did? What was your...
Well, there had been a drill once before, months ago, and I knew at that time that it was not for real. It was just a general meeting, like it was a drill. He bought out a tub of punch. In fact, it wasn't even a tub. It was, I think, a 5-gallon container. And the reason I thought that was a drill, or I felt that was a drill, was because he would pick people who had expressed in the past that they were afraid of death. He would pick these people and tell them, come up and drink it. And as they did it, he would clasp and tell them that they were loyal and, you know, that he trusted them. And, you know, that was a drill. And when this first started, I think I knew it was for real, but I didn't want to, I didn't admit to myself it was for real. And as for being afraid, yes, I was afraid, but I kind of got to the point that I didn't feel afraid, but I knew that I was, because I knew that if I had gotten caught trying to get out, or if I had expressed in any kind of way by facial expressions or anything that I was looking for a way out, that I would be stopped.
A lot of social security checks were found. Were people turning over? Did those checks continue to come in until the last? Were people turning over things like that automatically to Jones?
I had Social Security checks coming, and they would be brought to us, and you were made to sign them, and then they would keep them.
And the passports too. No one could hold on to his own passport. They were
not to my knowledge, no.
Odell, you went back in to help identify what went through your mind when you first saw that scene having escaped with your?
Well, I wasn't made to go in. I was asked by the commissioner if I would help. And although I had no family there, there was a lot of people there that, you know, I really loved a lot, especially children. I worked with children. I taught had a crafts class in school. And I wanted to see if they were there, if they could have gotten away. You know, it was a thing of just trying to hope somebody was alive.
Seeing so many of those people who you knew and loved dead, so many of the people who you've been living with, can you have any sense of the magnitude of the group that might be out there?
No, it would be hard if you live with 5, 6, or however many hundreds of people were there to look at a group and pick out someone who wasn't there.
What will you do with your life now, Odell?
I don't know at this time. I just don't know what I'm going to do right now.
How do you explain one man can have enough control over hundreds of people that they would commit suicide?
I can't explain the suicides. I can't explain how anybody would commit suicide at the urgings or instructions of another person. I mean, I've heard stories, read stories, seen movies about people who are supposedly in love and would jump off the lovers leap together, you know, and I can't even understand that. So I could not understand how all these people would voluntarily do it.
Would
No
it be
way.
perhaps because they were so dissatisfied with the United States, or so committed to socialism, or so much in a trance with Jones? Were they brainwashed? Have they lost their own decision-making capability?
I would say that was some cases. I would say some cases were like that. Some of them.
Did you think that that you were living in a sane community?
Up until this happened, yes. I thought the people were sane. I thought some people were. The people who were very dedicated, the people who were dedicated were the hardest workers. I mean, you know, like you're working on a farm community and you're farming and you get somebody that's very dedicated. And a friend of mine who was an alcoholic went over to talk to him, and they talked to him, and he left and went back to California. When he came back in June, intelligent, but he was an alcoholic. And he talked to me and he said, man, you check it out. And he had told them that he had some couple friends that he thought would, you know, be good to look into. She had been a drug addict. You know, we can take you out of this, we can change you, we'll help you with your drug problem, we'll, you know, get you and so he had his own daycare center. And I chose to work with the children. I didn't know what other job to go into at the time, and I said, well, I'll work here rather than do nothing. I'll work with the children.
It's been a year and a half. When was it established?
I understand that they sent people down. The family who came down at first, I think, was the Touches, and they had been here approximately 4 years. But when they first came, they lived in Kaituma with the citizens there. And as they built the compound, because when they first started, it was just all jungle. And they built it, and after they got the first couple buildings built, they went in and moved in there and continued to build.
What do you think will happen? What do you think should happen to the settlement now? And what do you think will happen and should happen to the temple itself?
I don't know. I don't know what. I think the settlement should be given to whoever wants it. I don't know what should or would happen. I have no idea on that.
And the People's Temple?
I don't have any idea on that.
What's your own feeling about it? Do you want to be a part of it?
No, I wouldn't. But if they want to continue it, that's up to them.
Is there an heir apparent to Jones, any great organization?
I don't know if he ever had anyone he intended as his heir. He talked about his son being his heir, but I don't know.
Well, Bill, have you talked to any other people who were there during the poisoning who escaped?
Have I talked to any? I don't know of any,
Did you see
as far as I know.
Sir, did you you see anyone out in the woods when you were running?
No, when I came out, it was dark. There was no moon, and I didn't travel on the road. I was off in the bush.
How long are you out there?
About 4.5 hours.
What's it like in that bush?
It's just black. It's just dark.
Was it hard to make your way? Was it easy? A lot of underbrush or clear?
I wasn't way deep in the bush. I traveled parallel to the road to the front entrance, which is about, I think, 3.5 miles from Jonestown to the front entrance to Jonestown. And I traveled parallel to the road, and on a couple occasions I had to go out to the road to see where I was at. But
Given depositions or anything?
I've given statements to the police here, and generally I'm not being questioned. I go in and I talk to Mr. Roberts if he has something he wants to ask me or whatever.
How were you rescued? And did you get the feeling there are a lot of Viennese rescues?
Building in Kaituma that is actually a PNC office. And there was a constable there, a couple constables and people standing around outside. And I went up and I, begged them to help to get people out to Jonestown. There were a lot of children there who called me their daddy because, I was a teacher and I took care of them, in the sense that I was with them a lot. But I don't know, I just feel a sense of loss with all these people.
Did you hear or see any shooting?
On the way out, when I was about a mile away, at least a mile away, I heard what I thought was one gunshot. But I didn't see any shooting. I just saw the people with the guns.
When you said that some people didn't do it voluntarily, could you talk a little more about that?
Well, when he asked if anyone dissented, there was one lady named Christine Miller who did stand up and say that she didn't want to, and so I didn't see her take anything or anything. She was alive when I left, but I would imagine from what she had said that she would probably resist it. And
what was the response to her dissent?
The general crowd shouted her down, told her she was a traitor, and they shouted her down. And on the way out there was a little girl named Julie Reynolds that was being forced to take it. She was about 13, I guess. And the woman who supervised her and one of the nurses were actually forcing her to take it because she kept spitting it out, and they were forcing her to take it.
Was there a lot of noise?
No, it wasn't that much noise. I mean, children were crying, they were going through convulsions, and some of the grandparents and parents were, getting hysterical as they saw the children die. But basically, a lot of the people were sitting, especially the senior people were just sitting and just waiting or watching,
They found a lot of narcotics like thorazine at the scene. What role did they play in the administrative report?
I don't know. One of the officials here asked me that, and he theorized that they may have injected people with tranquilizers and stuff. But I don't know. I don't have any idea about that.
Was there a cemetery in the camp?
There was a cemetery was about a mile away on the road to come in.
How many people?
To my knowledge, it's either 3 or 4.
They died a long time ago.
The last one died a few months ago.
Any idea how old they were?
All of them were old senior people. Yes.
How were the guards armed?
Some had shotguns, rifles, revolvers, crossbows, and bow and arrows.
How many were there?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you that.
Do you have any idea how long you'll be here?
No, I don't. No.
If you had to bet your money, was there only 600 people out there, or was there ever 1,000?
I would say there was never 1,000, but I can't say if there was only 600.
How could, what kind of scenario could you see for people leaving that setting where the poison was being distributed? You described how difficult it was for you to get away. How could other people have gotten away, and where could they be?
I don't know how they could have gotten away, and I don't know where they could be. That's the thing. A lot of people walked around like they were in a trance, and I don't know if they even tried to get away.
Do you think because of the feeling some of them might have had about the failure of the commune and their disillusionment with Jones, that they could have just chosen, well, let's just end it here?
I don't know. I can't say anything about anyone's reasons.
There was no general feeling, though, of failure in the, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but was it a going concern? Was Jonestown going to survive if the tragedy at the airport hadn't happened?
I think Jonestown, as the community, agricultural community, was still going fairly well. I don't think it was about to fold or anything like that.
In your mind, do you believe there are people out there and people who authorities ought to be looking for?
I can say I hope there are.
Do you think there are?
I don't know. In the one case that this woman said she saw this girl, I would say she's out there.
The Army says, and is telling us, that their primary mission here is to recover bodies, and until that is complete, they're not going to probably spare any equipment to get involved in an active kind of search. So what the answer to that question is no, there's no search going on right now, as far as we can determine. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I know the Guyanese have put people out. I'm quite sure they have, but I don't know about the U.S. if they put people out or not.
Could a large number of people have gotten away by boat? Was that boat that everybody's talking about at
The Albatross.
Yeah, the Albatross.
The Albatross,
Was it there to be taken out at that
Albatross has been gone for months.
What about the Cudjoe? Was it there and able to go out?
It was there that morning. They have the Cudjoe, and
They
2
don't
people were
carry
on it.
Was it?
You said you were in fear for your own life. So who do you fear? Who might hurt you?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. There were some people there who were part of the security force who haven't been found, I understand, so I don't know.
How big was the security force?
It varied. It varied. That night there were, I couldn't say, I just answered that before, I couldn't say how many people were on it.
How were they chosen to be?
They were mostly young men. I don't know if they were chosen by other people in the security force or what, but there were just a lot of people on it.
Can you give us an estimate of how many?
I couldn't even give an estimate of how many. I don't know if you could get a count of the weapons, then you would possibly know.
What percentage would you say of the population at Jonestown were elderly? And how many of those died away while you know?
I couldn't give you a percentage. There were a lot of elderly people, and
Was it mostly old people?
when you count like small children and the young adults and stuff, it's hard to say. I don't know. I can't say how many. There were a lot of old people.
And the infirm people?
Yes.
Do you think a lot of those people died over the past year and a half there?
I know of approximately 3 or 4. I can't remember the exact number who died.
Did you see Jim Jones' body when you returned?
Yes.
Well, how he died?
He had been shot.
Where was the wound?
It went into the right side behind the temple, or behind the ear, and it exited on the other side.
Do you know who may have shot him?
No, I don't.
Was that woman who was in charge of the nurses his mistress or his wife? There was some confusion about that.
I can't say if she was his mistress. I mean, that would be something that would be known only to, I guess, a few people.
What's her name?
his nurse that was shot in the house,
You know, the nurse.
attorney there.
Bill, were all the passports collected in one unit, in one box?
Pardon?
All the passports were always collected in one box, as long as you can?
To my knowledge, they had. Well, for one, he would say, and it made sense that it was just a better place to keep them. It was just safekeeping.
There have been reports of large sums of money there. Do you know how much was in the camp?
I don't know how much was there. I understand the police have recovered approximately $500,000 in cash, and I can't say if that was all of it or what.
Did you ever see any large amounts?
No, I've never seen any money there.
City gold or diamonds?
No.
There were also reports of large cases of pornographic material coming through the airport in possession of the people going up there. Was that a big scene up there at all?
I've never seen any. I mean, we had a closed-circuit TV system and movie cameras, movie projectors, and the only movies that I've ever seen were some documentaries and regular Hollywood movies, that were there. I've never seen any pornographic material, period.
What was your job?
I taught crafts class in school.
What was the closed-circuit TV used for?
It was just for it was basically for entertainment. I mean, there's no TV. There's no TV out in the jungle, and there's a video cassette, and we had TVs there. I also repaired TVs while I was there. And
were there surveillance cameras around the camp?
no, not to my knowledge.
Did the local Indians traded in diamonds with the store?
I don't have any idea what happened at the store. I've never been to the store.
When you went back, you saw many of the security guards dead after apparently taking the poison.
I saw them dead. I couldn't say how they died.
Did you see others with gunshot wounds besides Jones?
I saw Jones and one nurse who had been, I guess, his personal nurse, Annie Moore. They've both been shot.
Was the person people are referring to as a doctor an actual doctor or just a doctor for the camp?
To my knowledge, he graduated from medical school, but he never served his internship. I remember one time, just before he left, he was working at, I think, San Francisco General, but he never completed his internship.
Have you talked with any of the temple leaders who were in the group of survivors?
Do you have plans to leave?
I don't know yet. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to do.
Are there any outstanding charges against you in the U.S.?
No.
How many of those temple leaders are
I'm with Commissioner Roberts 2 nights ago, Wednesday night.
There's a group at the hotel here, and then there's a separate group that's still at headquarters.
They
The
were
question is how many are still
they were
there?
already at the headquarters, and I don't know how many there are.
You said that night that Jones was saying to the people something about what the United States was doing to us, meaning the group. What was he talking about?
The investigation that Ryan was making,
The U.S. government.
I think dissatisfied.
What was the criticism?
Well, they talked about how the government was responsible for whatever troubles we were having. How that was just generally it. The troubles we were having were caused by the government, according to Jones.
Meaning the concerned parents, Ryan's investigation.
The investigation and that.
People who were getting government checks, what happened to them? Did people take them into town and cash them and bring them back?
They found some of them there, and I don't know anything about the finances.
Who was in charge of that?
I think it was a girl named Marie Consars in charge of finances, but I can't say.
Were you living alone in the community?
No, I shared a room with other people.
Were you present at any rehearsals of this poison?
Thank you. You say you're from Detroit?
Yes,
And how old are you?
36.
36. And R-H-O-T-E-S?
R-H-O-D-E-S. I'd like to also say that the police here and the people have treated us like royalty since this has happened. They've been very kind and very good to us. Okay?
I'm Secretary of Associate Press. I wonder if I could ask you to just come over to that window and lean out and look at me.
This guy's over here for me. Much as you would like to have, don't get it.
You know, the gate's open. You know, do your thing, man. Here, give him some Coke. All Charlie's friends get free Coke.